and welcome to the One More Thing podcast. I'm joined today with Pastor Larry. Pastor, thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
We just had Palm Sunday, which I know is one of your favorite weekends of the year, and you talked about this triumphal entry. Can we go over that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that when you're oppressed and when you're being held down, whether it's politically, which was true then, but another nation dominates your country, and there's a hope, there's a leader that can come in and throw off the bondage, and that leader in the Old Testament language, his title was the Messiah, which means one like David, the anointed one, like David. David was the ruler that just helped them throw off all the oppressions, and they lived as free people. They kind of were the superpower of the world. They wanted back to that because some remembered those days. I mean, the stories, I mean, it's 1,000 years before, but some remembered the stories about how they were liberated. And throughout their history, they tried to get liberated. Jesus comes in, assumes that role, comes into the city the same way that Solomon did, and they are proclaiming him to be the Messiah. It was a triumphal entry.
Right.
But Jesus pauses along the way, and he starts weeping and just goes, man, you guys don't get it. You guys, if only you knew what was going to happen. If only you knew what would bring you peace. There's a whole conversation just about that phrase. If even you only knew what would bring you peace. And that day, they were looking for a champion, right. And what he was trying to convey to them, that's not it. It's not this external, powerful individual that unites the troops and brings the soldiers on board, but it's this internal kingdom of God that says peace reigns where there is humility and there's service and a dominance of love.
Right.
And I think that's part of the whole context. That sometimes we miss that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for Palm Sunday.
Yeah, I think, these people were expecting some sort of massive warrior, another David, to come in and take over. Ride in on a stallion with, armor and soldiers all around him, and here comes Jesus coming in on a donkey. Right.
And what most people don't know is when Luke writes this, he's probably writing this after AD 70.
AD 70, yeah.
AD 70 is when the temple was destroyed by Rome. Rome came in and wiped it out. So when they look back and say, if you only knew on this day what would bring you peace, but soon it's going to be apparent. They're going to build an embankment against you. And they did that in Masada. They did that to destroy the temple. They'd come in, that was their style. They'd build an embankment. They'd come in and wipe out whatever fortress you had, and not one stone would be left on the other. They just decimated the place. So Luke is writing this having seen these words already been fulfilled.
Right.
So, but we don't get that in the story, but it's good to know that. Luke was very aware of that as he wrote those words. But I think the things that I am intrigued by that passage is why he would weep, what would cause his heart to break. Because I think about our century, what makes his heart break today, and I think there are things that break his heart. And if he were here looking over our community, he might say, man, you guys are just trying to make money. Everything's about capitalism, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But if that's your only focus in life, you've missed it. If it's about throwing off the Republican regime or the Democrat regime, we're Americans.
Yeah.
Let's get along with one another, and let's realize that we are in such a good place in the world that, but still, if you only knew what would bring you peace, and it's the Spirit of Christ, I think that is the peace giver.
Yeah. I think even in my own journey, it's been one of those priority shifts. I was chasing money, chasing constantly. Like, that's what's going to bring me peace. That's what's going to bring me happiness. And I really realized one day, like, no, I'm going to sacrifice my time with my kids, my wife, and be miserable.
Yeah.
And that's just, my true priority in life is my family and spending time with the ones that I love.
But I think that's almost in line with what he's saying. If you
Right.
only knew what would bring you peace, but the path you're on is going to lead to destruction of, it's not just the temple, but the temple was the focus of their religion.
Right.
God lived there. There's going to be a day to where you're going to see that God doesn't live in this concrete box, and he is spirit, and he talked about that with Nicodemus. The wind blows where it wants. It's not confined within this small box. So I think that's part of the understanding that helps us today. What would grieve God today, I think, is if I put my trust in that which I can hold or handle, and I miss the value of relationships and people and loving others. But I think we're in a good place. At least at Suncoast, I think we're in a good place to make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it can be overwhelming. I talked to Scott about this when we did our talk on stage. Like, you want to do all these grand things. Like, I want to feed all these hungry kids in Africa, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And start with your local community. Start with the people that are around you. And if we all do that, everything would be different.
yeah. And it can be.
Yeah.
If we just focus on what we can do.
Right.
So sometimes it's said that children in the room full of chaos, when there's the TV's going and other kids are crying and there's all kinds of, maybe there's a family gathering and just laughter and clanging, and a little baby will shut down and fall asleep. It's because they can't handle all the noises that are going on. They're overwhelming. And sometimes in our life, we see all the needs around us. Well, I need to help build fresh water here, or go to Africa and do this, or Mozambique, or maybe we're so close to Dominican Republic, which we've been there 10 times, and Belize and Guatemala. I've been to many of those places, but sometimes the need is so great that we get overwhelmed, and what do? Nothing. We shut down.
Exactly.
So we take one step at a time. We do what's right in front of us, and then we take another step, and we try to help this one and that one and that one and that one, and then we think that's a better way to live.
100%. I 100% agree. So we are on the cusp of your favorite weekend. You call it the Super Bowl.
Right.
Over Christmas, over any other weekend, Easter weekend. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Like, what is it about Easter that is so special to you?
Well, it's about life. I mean, we go to Christmas, and it's about Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and we do a huge Christmas production, and we work very hard, and it's an evening thing. We do multiple services. But on Easter, it's morning. And I'm a morning person, first of all. And in the evening, I'm not nearly as energetic as I am in the morning.
Right.
So, and resurrection is about life, new beginnings, new things. And I think that in every ancient religion, you can see they have the winter celebrations, which means things are coming to an end. But then the spring, there's the things that the lilies come up and the flowers begin to bloom, and the resurrection really is significant about life, that it can begin again. And I think the Spirit of Christ is what we elaborate on Easter, because it's just an important time in our life.
I think the difference that I've seen with you as opposed to other churches that I've been to is that you're very much focused on the life aspect of Easter. I remember always hearing, like, we're going to celebrate the death of Jesus on Easter.
Yeah, someone talked to me about that this week, said they'd gotten a card in the mail, come celebrate the death of Jesus with us. And I find that perplexing, and also I think it's off focus for me. But people can do what they want, and
Sure.
they celebrate. I'm sure they're celebrating the fact that Jesus died on the cross, because he died on the cross, the greatest gift of humanity. And then there's a substitutionary view of atonement, that he died for my sins in my place. But I don't know that I agree with many of those atonement theories. Right. And it changes when your paradigm shifts and you realize God is not angry, and I need to somehow placate this angry God with a sacrifice. But when I realize that God is love, and I come in and say, but what does the Spirit of Christ mean to me at Easter? It's time for me to start again. All the things I failed at can begin again. All the depression and darkness and hurt in the world can be transitioned with a mental thought that, hey, the Spirit of Christ is here. It's not dead. It's not in the tomb. It is alive.
Right.
And we celebrate that in early morning. We'll be there at 7 o'clock, which we'll be there earlier than that, but at 7 o'clock on the property on the east side. Mm-hmm. We have a big stage set up, and the band is ready.
Yep.
And we'll be outdoors with hundreds of people, having a kind of a different service for us, but it's a sunrise service, and it's awakenings. And then at 9 and 10:30, we'll have the other services, which are a little different. But people, we say, hey, if you want to come to one or come to two, you can. But some people will do two. Some people only do one, and that's fine. But it's the greatest single day of the year. And I love to tell the story of my brother, Ben. He was a pastor years ago. Ben was on stage with me a while back.
Yep.
And one day he was down here, and he lived in Tennessee. And I go, what are you doing here? He said, well, I took a week off. I said, it's Easter. How could you possibly take Easter off as a pastor? I mean, I get to be the quarterback in the Super Bowl on Easter Sunday, and I'm not going to take that as a vacation day. Can you imagine Tom Brady? Well, that's a Super Bowl, but I'm going to let the backup set in for me. I'm going to go to Florida, or he's already here, but I'm going to go to the Bahamas or somewhere and vacation for a week because I do that week off. And I teased my brother relentlessly. He said, I just didn't think that through. And
Oh my gosh.
He just didn't think it through.
So he didn't even think about it.
No, he just didn't.
It was an unintentional.
Didn't think it through. So we have a saying here, Suncoast, all hands on deck.
Right.
Two days of the year.
Right.
No vacations, please. And one is Easter, the week of Easter, and the second is the week of the Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Following Christmas Eve, we take a break off, and following Easter, if you want to have vacation, people can take it. But these are the times, the most important times in the life of the church, are these 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, and I love your view on Easter. I love this celebration of life and love and what we should be focusing on Easter, and that's just right along with your message. And I remember when I first started working here, the idea of the sunrise service was just like the worst because I didn't get up early when I first started working here. So we'd have to get here at like 6, sometimes even a little bit before that. But I always remembered when we were on stage and just singing, all of those feelings went away. Like, because I was dreading it the whole time. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so early. Like, it's going to be muggy. It's going to be all these external things. And then when we were up there, and every single year, I cry a little bit because it's such a special service. Yeah. And I now like sing that. That's my favorite service of the year over Christmas. And I'm a big Christmas fan.
Right.
You know that about me. But that sunrise service is so special. And I know you love it too.
Yeah. Yeah. It is the greatest. And what are we celebrating? We're not celebrating the death of Jesus. We're celebrating the truth that the tomb is empty, that the love that Jesus portrayed on that day could not be buried. It could not be killed. You can try it, you can crucify it, you can put it in a tomb, but guess what? It will never stay there, because the love of Christ, I think, is the same love that began in the very beginning of time. And John talks about it in John 1. In the beginning was this Logos, this word, or this presence of Christ, and the Spirit of Christ was with God, and the Spirit of Christ was God. And I think we've seen that. They tried to kill it, could not happen. And I'm happy to proclaim 2,000 years after that event, the Spirit of Christ is alive and well, at least in Suncoast and Sarasota.
Amazing. Well, Larry, thank you so much for being on the One More Thing. We're excited about this weekend. It's going to be amazing. And we'll talk next time.
All right, thanks.